We're back with our long-term Prius. Toyota gave us a Prius for a while because we wanted to take on the Herculean task of seeing if a Prius is fun.
Every time that I tell people that we are looking forward to driving a Prius, the new Prius, people look at me sideways because that is not the car that enthusiasts choose when they're nerding out over cars and they want something fun to drive.
But we thought, you know what, we'll change a few minor things and see if we can unearth some fun in this new generation of the Prius. I know that seems kind of like a fool's errand. The Prius is not supposed to be fun, and we're well aware of that.
People give me this glance like I'm trying to convince them I have just eaten delicious airline food.
The minute it got released, with a bump in horsepower and these looks, many of you in our audience asked us, but is it fun now? Could it be a hot hatch? Could I buy a Prius and not feel embarrassed by getting good gas mileage and having a good to drive car? That's a lot to ask.
But there is a benchmark car. For decades, if you wanted a usable, do-it-all, fun car that got great gas mileage and was really excellent on track, canyons, it is the Volkswagen GTI.
Great cars, great roads, and all the reasons we love to drive.
Road trips, comparisons, test drives, and podcasts. This is Everyday Driver.
This car has always excelled at being a usable, normal car for all the things that life throws at you. And then every now and then, it's surprisingly fun. I mean, a canyon road at the end of a commute day is pretty much the natural habitat for the Volkswagen GTI.
Thanks to the owner of this car who dailies it and does exactly with this car what it's designed to do. It's a 2023 GTI with the 7 speed, so I like that it's not a manual. I like that we're comparing it directly to that CVT in the Prius.
That means it costs about $33,000, a few $1,000s less than our Prius. You can tell it's daily driven because he recently had a windshield strike on his daily and he hasn't had a chance to fix it yet. So we have some cracks in the windshield of this GTI. That's where those come from. Welcome to Utah.
But I love that the owner of this car has also upgraded the tires here because the base GTI is not known for having great tires either.
This owner knows that, put these wheels and better tires on this car, and now it handles really, really well. This is a little bit more aggressive track-focused tire than the Vredesteins we have on our Prius, but they're surprisingly compatible.
Even though slightly wider 235/40 Series 18s, this car grips pretty hard. Now this was clearly designed from the very beginning to have a fun steering feel. The Prius was not. Yeah, the steering feel is far better on the Golf, but you know, it should be.
Neither of these cars really offer you much steering feel, even with improved tires. It changes the weight. The weight here is still a little bit more effort than is required in the Prius. It doesn't mean it's giving me more information. It's just asking a little more of me to turn the wheel.
In comparison to fun cars and sports cars, the GTI is not the most direct and engaging kind of steering here. There's more communicative cars, but this is still a great little combination of everything.
The other place where this takes corners better than the Prius is actually the suspension tuning. Now, I was surprised that the body roll here compared to the Prius, they're almost equivalent. The difference is the way the suspension itself handles the bumps. This GTI, even in this base S form, has really good suspension tuning and feels quite supple. It absorbs the bumps and doesn't disrupt the car nearly as much as the Prius does. The main reason that this feels better than the Prius is actually the ergonomics of the seating position and the seats themselves.
The seats are far better on the GTI. I mean, this is performance car thinking first, then commuter. The GTI clearly is still the benchmark here. Not just because of its performance, because of its price. $33 for this one and $36, almost $37 for the Prius. It's like the Corvette of hot hatches. Bang for your buck, right? But the smallest things on the Prius could bring it towards GTI world.
The Prius comes with these very tall, thin wheels. They're actually 19s with a 195 tire on them.
Whoa, ha ha ha. Ooh, that was the lightest of corners.
The tiniest bit of turn in and they squeal like you're murdering them and then they just don't hang on.
But here we are putting different wheels and tires on it just to see if it can come close to what the GTI can do. Thanks to Vredestein, they have given us Ultrac Vorti Plus tires on Enkei wheels. This Prius is now running to 25/40 18s. You might look at this and think it's a little bit goofy looking, and you're right, because the original 195 5019s were too tall. So we could have gone 245s, but we just played it a little bit safe just to make sure everything cleared on the stock suspension. It looks a touch goofy, it's settled out, and I think it kind of looks cool.
So, with just wider wheels and better tires, can the Prius be fun? Now, we're not expecting it to be the most fun thing ever.
I don't care if the tires are protesting, we are here to extract every last drop of fun to be had out of this Prius. What? How is this possible? You've never been able to hang onto a corner in a Prius before.
The Prius, with these wheels and tires, gets surprisingly close. One big surprise for me is that I felt like this really needed sway bars, and I'd still like to do them. The body roll seemed pretty extreme until I got into it behind the GTI and realized the body roll's about the same.
Not only does the Prius look good, but the answer is yes. Look at the corner you can hang on to now.
The movements in here are a bit less refined than the GTI, and if you hit bumps, like a bumpy road in the middle of a corner, this crashes over those bumps more than the GTI does. You'd probably have to go with something beyond sway bars into like coilovers to actually get a ride that feels like the suppleness of the GTI, but that's not what this car was set up for. It was set up for commuting.
Prius, attack! Words that have never been spoken. Let's attack! No squeal! Look at that! What? This is astounding. And this only weighs about 200 pounds more than the GTI.
I'm telling you that the tires would have shrieked there. I'm amazed at how much these tires on this chassis have turned this into a car that can corner and not complain. With the tire problem handled, and with the realization that the body roll is pretty similar to the GTI, the big thing that lets you down in the corners is actually the seats.
That is fantastic. We've done nothing else. And of course, this begets all the other thoughts in your mind about what should be done. Suspension lowered a little bit, sway bars, brakes. That would make this thing kind of quick.
But then we ran into a couple of realities. First off, this new version is so new that many of the companies that have made stuff for Prius in the past just haven't released any product yet. Cusco out of Japan has had some sway bars available for all of the generations prior. They also currently have them available for this generation in Japan. We have not been able to get any to the States yet, and we've been working with them directly. Power Stop is our brake sponsor. They don't have any pads for this car yet. Most of the companies that will eventually have something for the Prius just haven't finished development yet.
But I wonder if Toyota's working on something. I wonder if this is just the first step, because there is something here. The chassis is lower and wider than ever before, and you've got sport mode. It makes the CVT hate you, but I don't care.
Wasn't even in sport mode yet. For the first time ever, the Prius has an actual sport mode. Look at that.
Let's dive into power. This is the all-wheel drive limited edition, so it gets a 2 horsepower bump from the front-wheel drive version, which means this is 196 horsepower total combined system horsepower.
Now you can look at that a couple of ways. On one level, that is significantly more horsepower than the Prius had before. It's like 60% more horsepower. But it is still down 40 horsepower from the GTI and more than 100 pound-feet of torque.
The rear motor is dedicated to torque fill. It's hanging out back there with its 40 horsepower and 62 pound-feet of torque, and that's what gives it the shove off the line. And never before, ever in my life, have I been able to take people in a Prius. And now that's all I can say. That's right, if I take them off the line, they're not ready for me, and if now I can kind of hang with them in a corner, you just got taken by a Prius.
The GTI is still faster. It's 2 seconds faster 0 to 60. That can't be denied, okay? Guess what that means? The GTI would win the drag race. We don't even need to see it. Stop asking.
But in comparison, the Prius has that electric motor. And even though it's way down on power, it feels quick. The CVT on the Prius actually makes it so you can kind of have consistent power. And look, on your instrument panel here, you can see the torque distribution front to rear.
Compared to the GTI, this Prius sounds like you're hurting it. when you want to drive hard. When you're on a hill and you give it a lot of gas and it throws everything it's got into forward momentum, it just sounds like it really wishes you'd stop. It's just, I don't like this. Can we please stop?
The Volkswagen makes 241 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. There's much more power to be had here. It's much more instantaneous, and the 7-speed does take advantage of it pretty well.
This is a great dual clutch gearbox. I don't feel like it enjoys being told what to do. I feel like what it really wants to do is to be left alone, to do its job, put me into actual automatic mode, even if it's the sporty automatic mode, and let me think for myself. Now, compared to the Prius CVT, this of course is an excellent gearbox and gets you the power that you want all the time. However, I am surprised that in most normal driving, this is a much faster car than the Prius and doesn't feel like it. From a stop and in normal city driving, you're not really going to notice that this is a faster car. Better gearbox, but not nearly as fast as it would seem based on those numbers.
So, which would you rather have? I'd rather have the GTI right now, but if mileage and commuting is an issue, just know that with the simplest swap, get Vredesteins on your Prius, and you have something that can kind of hang with a GTI. Volkswagen claims 24 and 34 city and highway, and they also claim 28 combined.
We live and film at about 6,000 feet and above. We drive up and down mountains regularly. We never get anything close to the advertised miles per gallon. This Prius is supposed to break into the 50s in your normal commute on flat roads in a sea-level city. So by going with these wider tires, this performance tire from Vredestein, we expected that these 40 Plus would actually bring the miles per gallon down a lot. Now, we have to set the baseline.
We've been recording our best MPG since we've started with this car, and it started out on the stock wheels and tires. Toyota claims up to 52 MPG out of this new Prius, but again, we're at altitude, and it's us. When you put it in sport mode, we're going to try to extract every drop we can out of this thing.
We were getting about 38.4 miles to the gallon. I tell you that number down to the tenths because we were surprised at how close these new wheels and tires actually get us. Now, technically, this wheel and tire combination is a little bit small for the car. That was the size that properly fit for clearances. It results in a tire diameter that is about 6% smaller than the stock wheels. So we have to do a bit of conversion when we do our miles per gallon calculation. Luckily, my phone has a calculator, and I kind of know how to use it, so we actually did the numbers, and here's what's so fascinating.
It's working. I feel like we did it, because the latest fill-up has indicated this car is getting 38.1 mpg. That is with the 6% calculation for the smaller diameter tire.
Mere tenths of a miles per gallon less with these wheels and tires in the same kind of driving than we had with the originals on.
And we've improved the handling dramatically. Tires alone make all the difference. You know you can rely on the GTI through corners. You know what it will do. You know it will stick. But now the Prius can too.
I didn't expect the Prius to be more fun to drive than the GTI. I didn't expect that. I wasn't coming in with that expectation. I was curious to see if our Prius has gotten close at all, and it's surprisingly close.
It's unsatisfying to drive with the steering. There's nothing here, but I think there could be. I'm almost thinking about choosing the Prius, just because of littlest thing has made that car kind of come to life. It's never been scrappy and kind of nimble and kind of ready for a fight. It knows it's gonna lose, but it's gonna lose by a lot less than it ever has. And that's what I love about the Prius.
The GTI is like a really successful high school decathlete. What I mean by that is this really is a car that does about everything and anything you can think of. But none of it is world class. None of it is at the upper level of what's possible if you focus yourself on just a car for fun, or just a car for MPG, or just a car for storage. There are cars that excel in individual areas better than the Volkswagen GTI, but the GTI's party piece is the fact that it does so many things at such a high level so well, all in a singular package. But the thing I'm very surprised by is that the gap at this point between this and our Prius is pretty small.
Never in a million years have I ever thought this would be fun, that a Prius could be kind of something here.
Just feeling confident in corners, knowing you can throw it in and pick a line and carry some speed and the car doesn't give up on you, does so much to increase the enjoyment factor.
It's the same fuel economy, and now I have something that's kind of fun. And believe me, Todd and I have not been easy on this car. We have kind of thrashed it everywhere we go. Ha ha ha.
I mean, it still drones, and the seats still really suck. But, you know, okay, there's limits. All right, would I put seats in a Prius? I don't know that I'd go that far. But I know a lot of people with performance cars that change seats, so maybe that's not a bridge too far.
And it's even got a raked windshield, kind of like a supercar. Kinda? No?
This car has no business being this fun. It has no business being a tire change away from, oh, that really did really well in that corner, and I can't believe I'm enjoying this. I mean, that's fast enough that most cars would feel fast through that corner. And I'm doing it in a Prius. We've done something here.
We knew this would be decent with better tires. Any car is. But it's the MPG that's astounding me. No longer is there shame in driving a Prius. No longer is there the give up on life kind of feeling. I've given up and I just got a Prius because I just want MPG.
I mean, you might still feel embarrassed, but the point here is with good wheels and tires, we've already elevated this car almost to the level of the GTI in driving fun.
If you'd like to elevate your car's driving fun, visit Vredestein.com for the Ultrac Vorti Plus we used here, or tires for whatever your car needs.